Hello there, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the southeast. Guilty verdicts in the trial of a hit-and-run driver who killed a pregnant woman and her elderly father in Ramsgate.
A warning to be careful who you leave your vehicles with around Gatwick Airport. A massive rise in complaints about rogue parking companies.
I dread to think what was actually done with my car in those 3 weeks that I was away.
Also on the programme, why changing our eating habits to mirror previous generations could be the key to combating climate change.
And we visit another of your incredible Christmas light extravaganzas. This time it's the festive bling of Bourton-under-Blean. Good evening. Guilty verdicts have been returned in the trial of a hit-and-run driver who killed a pregnant woman and her elderly father in Kent.
30-year-old Nitesh Bisandri had taken cocaine before his car mounted a pavement and crashed into a family of 5 at Ramsgate in August.
Well, Sarah Saunders is at Canterbury Crown Court for us this evening. What more can you tell us, Sarah?
Well, today, Nitesh Bisandri did not react at all as the jury found him guilty of all counts of dangerous driving. During the course of this trial, they had heard that Bisandri had likely taken cocaine as he drove around the streets of Ramsgate in his black Alfa Romeo. When he mounted the curb in Leopold Street, he destroyed a family of 5 who were holidaying in the town. Physicist and mum of 2, Noga Seller, was crushed underneath his car. Her 81-year-old father, Yoram Hirschfeld, died of spinal injuries. Her husband and their 5-year-old daughter were seriously injured, and their 8-year-old son watched it all unfold. Well, despite the carnage that he had caused, Bisandri ran away from the scene. His first thought was not for the family who lay injured and dying around him. It was for himself. He was concerned that police might be able to work out that he had been buying and selling drugs. He would later return to the vehicle while Noga Seller was still trapped underneath it to search for a stash that he had bought earlier that day and dispose of it. He now faces sentencing for 2 counts of causing death by dangerous driving and 2 counts of causing serious injury by dangerous driving.
OK, Sarah, for the time being, thank you very much indeed.
In other news, the double killer David Fuller has been handed a further 4 years in prison for the systematic sexual abuse of women's bodies at mortuaries in Tunbridge Wells. The 68-year-old is already serving a whole life sentence for murdering Wendy Nell and Caroline Pierce in 1987. The judge said Fuller would spend the rest of his life in prison.
The depravity of what you did to those you killed and those you defiled after death reveals that your conscience is seared. It's almost impossible to believe that a single man can cause the misery to so many that you have done.
2 primary schools in Tunbridge Wells have confirmed Strep A outbreaks among pupils. Temple Grove Academy has confirmed cases, while a pupil at St John's has needed hospital treatment. Parents across the region are being urged to look out for symptoms after a rise in infections.
A pedestrian in her 70s has died in a crash in Laysdown-on-Sea. It's believed the woman had been pushing a trolley bag on Laysdown Road when she was hit by a car. Police are investigating, but any witnesses are being urged to come forward.
A woman who risked her own life to help a girl who was being attacked by a stranger in Maidstone has been recognised for her bravery. Teresa Locke was working at a taxi firm last year when she heard the victim screaming. She tried to intervene and was punched in the face by the offender, but was able to get a security guard to help. The attacker was jailed for 3 years.
Now, complaints about rogue meet-and-greet parking companies operating around Gatwick are soaring, and there are fears that hundreds of people will be ripped off during the Christmas and New Year getaway.
Well, victims have had vehicles returned late or not at all, and cars have been returned dirty and damaged, sometimes after being used on long, unexplained journeys. Well, tonight, airport bosses have issued a 5-point checklist to help passengers avoid being stung. With more, here's James Dunham.
It was clearly not parked securely anywhere. It looked like it'd been left outside somewhere.
Shireen came home to a muddy bird's muck mess covering her car. This meet and greet misery leaving her vehicle empty on fuel and in a dirty state. A nasty shock after an 8-hour flight.
I think it's a disgrace that people would do this and have no kind of human empathy, because obviously they're scammers. So they're taking this opportunity to take the car for whatever reason. I dread to think what was actually done with my car in those 3 weeks that I was away.
Gatwick's seen a 160% increase in complaints about rogue parking companies, like the business owner in this dashcam footage who was caught driving and damaging a person's vehicle while they were away. Searching Gatwick parking on a reputable review website brings up dozens of results, and it's this process which the airport is urging passengers to follow, because you can quite clearly see where some companies rank much higher than others. As well as referring to reviews, passengers are told to only book external parking if the company has full contact details, is a registered business with a VAT number and carries the British Parking Association and Trading Standards accreditation.
We wouldn't wish to park at the airport. We've heard so many stories about rogue use of other people's cars.
One had an accident and triggered their alarm in the car. So he got a notification. He's got, I think it was Mercedes, he got a notification that his car had been involved in an accident.
I think it's a better solution, taking public transportation. It's better for the environment as well.
Why can't Gatwick shut down these companies?
Yeah, it's frustrating for us because obviously they trade off the Gatwick name. But legally, provided these companies abide by the airport bylaws when they're within the airport, there's nothing legally we can do to shut them down. So what we rely on is people to think smart before they book and make sure they do all the appropriate checks.
In 2016, hundreds of passenger vehicles were found abandoned in this field, a reminder of the filthy consequences of con artists operating in the bogus parking trade. James Dunham, ITV News, Gatwick.
More of the day's news now, and 7 more cases of diphtheria among asylum seekers have been identified in England. It's been reported there have been more cases at the Manston Processing Centre. The UK Health Security Agency says the total number across the country so far this year is 57.
For the second time in just a few weeks, the Kent Wildlife Trust Nature Reserve in Sevenoaks has been targeted by thieves. Thousands of pounds worth of equipment has been taken, including chainsaws and a trailer.
Air quality on some of the busiest routes in Brighton and Hove is improving. That's according to the latest figures from the council. It says it's largely thanks to cleaner diesel and hybrid buses.
A Sussex charity is celebrating after hitting its £20,000 target to buy specialist equipment, which helps disabled young people with their mobility. Each year, the Chailey Heritage Foundation takes part in the Big Give Christmas Challenge, a national match funding campaign for charities. The money will now be able to buy 5 specialist trikes and 2 walkers.
They will make a huge difference, won't they? Now, the new Chief Constable of Kent has insisted he's committed to visible neighbourhood policing, despite the fact there are plans to cut the number of community support officers.
Tim Smith told us the proposals would see newly recruited police officers working in local communities instead.
But one union says halving the PCSO workforce would be a disaster for the county. With more, here's Kit Bradshaw.
For more than a decade, community support officers have been at the forefront of neighbourhood policing, something emphasised in this recruitment video. But Kent Police isn't hiring PCSOs anymore. In fact, it's doing the opposite. Proposals would see fewer of them walking the beat, replaced by police constables, who have greater powers and additional equipment. It's top of the new Chief Constable's in-tray, who was confirmed in post earlier this week.
We're just in the throes of redesigning our neighbourhood policing model. The reality for me is that at the heart of policing has to be that visible neighbourhood and accessible service that the public deserve.
Why are reducing the number of police community support officers currently part of that reform plan?
It is an opportunity to put more visible uniformed police officers back onto those wards and into those local communities where people will see them, and of course they will be able to fight crime. We will retain a high number of PCSOs who will be working in small teams with police officers. We have had to reduce the numbers as part of that model. It is my intention that we'll do that in as compassionate a way we can for those individuals affected.
There were 333 PCSOs in Kent in 2012. That's already fallen by more than a third to 203, and union officials say numbers would be halved to just 104 if the plans go through.
Police community support officers have been the bedrock of neighbourhood policing in Kent. They have been there in those communities, in town centres. They've formed relationships over 12 years. You don't just end those, bring in 134 new people as officers and expect those relationships to roll over. It takes time for them to build up. And I do think the public are going to miss them. And my real fear is that we won't really know what we've lost until it's too late.
We can't talk about the numbers at the moment because that's subject to consultation with PCSOs, but what people will see is police officers in their local wards, in their local communities, in our schools, in our rural areas, dealing with crime and antisocial behaviour.
Kent Police needs to save more than £25 million over the next 4 years, and with government targets to recruit more officers, it's civilian roles, including PCSOs, that appear most at risk. Kit Bradshaw, ITV News.
Now you're watching ITV News Meridian in the South East. Still to come on the programme.
We meet Bodie, the red-nosed reindeer, the canine carer bringing joy to residents at a Sussex care home.
And it looks as though we'll be seeing plenty more of this sort of thing covering the ground over the coming days. I'll be back with a rather chilly forecast a little bit later.
Plenty more from us, of course, on our website. Details on the screen. itv.com/meridian is the address. You can call us 0808 1010 095. And as ever, don't forget to follow us on social media.
Now, every child should have the right to play, but new research shows that half of families with disabled children can't even access their local playground.
Well, with parks one of the only free resources available for families who are struggling during the cost of living crisis, more than 31,000 campaigners and parents have written to the government calling for urgent intervention.
Catherine Walker has this report as part of our special coverage for Disability History Month.
Playgrounds should be free for all children to enjoy, but a lack of wheelchair-friendly paths or accessible equipment means Jasper ends up at this physical therapy centre in Crawley.
It's incredibly isolating. It's difficult enough with the challenges that we have on the day-to-day to get out of the house and for the main place for children and families to go and get out of the house is the playground. And when they're not accessible, it's a very, frankly, painful experience.
It's a legal requirement for playgrounds to be made suitable for everyone. But research found that half of families with disabled children feel their local playground isn't accessible. 1 in 7 said they can't enjoy playgrounds as a family, and 1 in 10 said their child had hurt themselves on equipment.
Access to, accessible playgrounds is important because otherwise, children who have, different needs or abilities might be isolated at home. They're not able to engage in activities that other children are. Childhood is a really special time and we want to make sure all children have access to good quality playgrounds.
Concerned about the impact on children's mental and physical health, the charity Scope has written to the government calling for change.
Playgrounds are where memories are formed, where friendships are formed, it's where families can come together, and crucially, in a cost of living crisis, they're one of the few local resources that are free. So we've asked the government to set up an inclusive playgrounds fund that as money is ring-fenced for playgrounds to make sure that their equipment is accessible.
Its investment, Sangeeta says, is long overdue. Adaptations like rubber floors or drive-on roundabouts mean her son Arjan can easily enjoy the park.
There need to be big changes. Every council needs to be getting in contact with parents that have got children with disabilities and talk to them about what they believe a playground should have for their child, whether it's a swing or roundabout that's fully accessible, because at the end of the day, he is like any other child and he needs to actually live that sort of life.
In a statement, the government told ITV News they've given councils an extra £37 billion this year for vital services, including playgrounds. But in parks across the country, parents say urgent changes are needed to create a level playing field for all children. Catherine Walker, ITV News.
Now, there's a warning that our future eating habits may need to change to deal with the onset of climate change and improve resilience in our food supply.
Factors like the war in Ukraine and Brexit have put pressure on the cost of imported foods, which currently make up almost half of our diets.
But it's claimed reverting to a model used by older generations of eating mostly locally sourced food when it's in season will boost food security and improve the environment. With more, here's Nick Smith.
When seeking out fresh, locally sourced produce, for many of us the first stop will be a local farm shop, like Hartley Coffee House in Cranbrook. And staff here think there's high demand for items with ingredients taken straight from the Kent countryside.
I think really the quality of the food, it hasn't travelled, and it's supporting the local farmers. Our own farmers here, our own owners are farmers, and they produce apples, pears, plums and cherries, which come literally from the orchards behind us straight into the shop.
These shops replicate a historic model where most of our produce was sold and consumed within a few miles of where it was farmed. Today our food supply relies on a different model, suiting larger retailers, with crops and livestock farmed on an industrial scale, often transported and sold hundreds of miles from its origin. Anne Evans is a grower who used to supply supermarkets, but in recent years felt their demands weren't in keeping with how she wanted to farm.
We wanted to produce in a way that reflected climate change and that reflected care of nature, fitting in with the local economy. So if you supply supermarkets, all those goals are quite hard to achieve. And it took us quite a few years to realise that whilst we were supplying supermarkets, that we were going against quite a lot of our fundamental values. And so we took the decision to sell as locally as possible.
Many farmers believe the current food supply model, with the demands and pressures it creates, is unsustainable, and we could shift our eating habits to create a less damaging impact on the land. One suggestion for a more sustainable diet is to eat like our grandparents would have done, taking advantage of certain foods when they're in season. And modern developments like polytunnels in the last few decades have been able to extend the growing period, meaning certain foods are available for longer in the year. Cheese producer and dairy farmer Patrick Holden has been advocating for this method for some time. He's the founder of the Sustainable Food Trust and recently oversaw a report calling for a radical shift in the way we feed our population.
Economies of scale have driven this move towards centralised food systems, and if we want to reverse that, we will have to pay more for our food. But I think there are huge benefits which derive from eating food which comes near to where we live. There are social benefits, there are more jobs. We employ 5 people in our cheese dairy. And if we'd sent the milk away, that would be jobs lost. There are health benefits and environmental benefits as well. The agriculture transition won't be easy. It will require support from government. It will require retailers and food companies to change their sourcing models. But above all, if each of us buy an increasing proportion of our staple foods grown locally, that would accelerate the transition we all need to address climate change.
It's an ambitious plan, especially when many are struggling with the price of food in a cost of living crisis. But those working the land say a longer-term view is needed to facilitate the change to correct the balance between human needs and protecting our environment. Nick Smith, ITV News.
And the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With more details, here's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up in the programme, raids in Germany as dozens are accused of plotting a coup. 25 people have been arrested on suspicion of planning to overthrow the government. Also ahead, what a border force walkout means for Christmas travel plans as workers go on strike. Plus, plunging temperatures. We'll have the very latest on weather warnings in place overnight. And a fighting talk from England as they prepare to take on France in the World Cup. Do join me for those stories and much more at 6:30.
Meanwhile here, care home residents in Sussex have been lapping up their regular visits from a canine carer.
That carer is a dog called Bodhi, and he's been trained by the home's housekeeper so she can bring him to work. And he's spreading a little Christmas cheer while he's there, as Abigail Bracken explains.
Bodhi the lurcher, getting into the Christmas spirit as Bodhi the red-nosed reindeer. And welcomed by residents of a care home in Eastbourne. Bodhi visits Beechwood Grove regularly, brought along by his owner and head of housekeeping here, and who trained him as a canine carer.
He makes the residents smile. He's a talking point. It reminds them of memories that they might have forgotten. It can promote well-being, mental health, which is extremely important in these testing times. And if it makes one resident smile, then it's definitely worth it.
Brodie had to pass lots of tests before he could be allowed in as a regular visitor here, like proving that he could take treats calmly and that he doesn't jump up.
Bodhi, up! Except when he's asked to. Bodhi's visits help lift the mood here.
I love him ever such a lot. He brings us all so much pleasure. Everybody laughs at him in here, smiles, and he's so friendly.
It's wonderful. Yes, lovely. And I love him to bits.
Lovely dog. And he's so sweet today because he's in his Christmas uniform.
He's an amazing dog. He really is so gentle with people. He definitely likes his food.
And with all these treats, Bodhi loves spreading Christmas cheer among residents here. Abigail Bracken, ITV News, Eastbourne.
I think he's got a job for life, hasn't he?
Yes, getting very spoiled there. Now, on Monday's programme, we were in Westfield near Hastings, where the whole village came together to trip the light fantastic and put on a sparkly show. And we asked whether you knew of a light show that's even better.
Well, we heard from viewers in Bourton-under-Blean near Canterbury, and they think their extravaganza is every bit as good. And like the lights in Westfield, it's all in aid of a good cause. Tony Green has been along to take a look.
You know, it's been a bright day all day here in Kent, but it's also going to be a bright night here in Bourton-under-Blean. Look at this. We've got elves, we've got Christmas trees, we've got animals. There are, I haven't counted them, but there are 50,000 lights here, and this is the man who put them all out. Ross Clark, how long has this taken you to put all this together?
About 3 weeks. Yeah, started early November, switch on was 24th of November.
Now, I have it on good authority that this all started with a few lights around the window, and then it got bigger and bigger.
Yeah, just round the window, doors, then onto the grass, and then to this.
When will so many lights be too many lights?
No, never too many, never too many. Bigger and better next year.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ross. Now let's meet your wife, Michelle Clark. Hi, Michelle. Now, I understand that this is for a very good cause. It's lots of fun, but there's a serious purpose behind it because all of this is in memory of your son, Jack, who you lost 20 years ago.
Yep, his birthday was on the 24th, and we're doing it for Great Ormond Street Charity this year, and these are like his birthday cake candles, and just for everyone to enjoy.
And lots of people do enjoy it. People come from miles around here just to take a look at these lights, and there's not just lights on show. I don't know what the weather's going to be in store everywhere else, but I know that here there is snow every night.
Oh, I love that. Snow every night. That's just what we need.
I mean, you shouldn't have favourites, but I really do like that light show because they're all the same colour, mostly a similar colour. It looks really good.
Very tasteful,
yeah.
And lots of animals and loads of things to see.
Yeah.
But we've started something now, haven't we?
We have.
We want
There's
to see...
a train. Wow, OK.
There's a train, there's candy, there's everything. Have you got a show that could beat that one? And if you do, we definitely want to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely.
Get in touch.
Well, Tony said he wasn't sure what the weather was looking like where we are, but we know somebody who does. Pip joins us in the studio. I mean, what a difference. It's really taken a bit of a nosedive.
It really has in terms of temperatures. We've got really used to mild weather this year, but it's been much colder since we entered December, and it's going to get colder still over the next couple of days. Take a look at this temperature graph graphic here. So we're really used to seeing those sort of orange and yellow hues across us, but you can see the blues have very much taken over. Highs in the south today have been just 6 degrees. And as we head through the next few days, we'll continue with that feed of cold Arctic air, dragging down colder still air. And in fact, for the next few days, we're looking at highs perhaps closer to 3 Celsius. A bit of a shock to the system, because the last time we had properly cold weather was way back in February 2021, if you can remember back that far.
Really?
Yeah, I know, unbelievable.
So what does that mean for weather warnings?
Well, so at the moment, for our part of the world, we don't have any weather warnings in force as such. There are some elsewhere, more coastal districts, but what we do have is a Met Office cold weather alert, an amber one. Let's take a look at that. So that came into force at 6 o'clock this evening. It runs through until 9 o'clock on Monday morning, and it's more to do with the lower temperatures and how those can affect our health and the health of those around us. So lots of common sense advice goes along with that. So checking on friends and family, particularly those more vulnerable, those less mobile, taking on more in the way of warm food and drinks, warming up from the inside out. If you can, keeping that indoor temperature at around 18 Celsius, ideally a bit above for optimal health. And if you are heading out into the cold, then keep a check on the latest warnings. As I said, nothing in force for our part of the world at the moment, but wintry weather is close by. We could well certainly have some slippery surfaces over the coming days.
Well, can't say that. Yes.
Come on.
There could be some wintry showers around. At the moment, we're staying clear of them, but we'll see how the next few days pan out.
You've gone early on the snow question.
Exciting. It's a full forecast. Here's Pip.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Lots of cold weather on the way then over the next few days. Bitterly cold at times, mostly dry certainly, but we will have plenty of overnight frost to contend with, and perhaps at times some mist and fog as well. So we've got low pressure up towards the northeast there. That's driving a northerly airflow across the UK, bringing that cold air. And whilst there will be some showers around, they'll generally be around coastal districts. So for the most part, we should avoid anything too wintry, at least for the time being. Out there at the moment then, dry and clear, taking us through this evening and tonight. Light winds as well, and of course with all of that, temperatures falling pretty rapidly. I think for many of us dipping below freezing, and some rural spots perhaps as low as -4 or -5 Celsius by dawn. No surprise then, we will have a widespread and fairly harsh frost by dawn, and that could mean some windscreens to scrape first thing tomorrow morning. So a slow and rather chilly start, but plenty of sunshine from the word go, and that sunshine gradually melting the frost away, but it's going to have to go some to help the temperatures. It will be a bitterly cold day tomorrow for most of us, probably topping out at 2 or 3 Celsius, and even the lightest of breezes making that feel colder still. These are the high tide times for tomorrow. Then for Margate there, just the one, 11:53 in the morning. Through the rest of Thursday overnight into Friday then, a repeat performance, so largely dry and clear with light winds overnight, giving rise to another widespread and sharp frost by Friday morning. Friday itself set to be a pretty bright day, and little change as we head into the weekend. Mist and fog if it forms could be slow to clear, and still plenty of frost to contend with. Bye-bye.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Just time to tell you about something coming up on tomorrow's programme. As part of a special series of reports, ITV Meridian has been exploring the issue of homelessness.
Yes, every 4 minutes someone becomes homeless, according to the charity Shelter, and that's expected to get worse with the cost of living crisis.
Well, our reporter Joe Coshion has been looking at the picture across the southeast and the misconceptions surrounding people experiencing homelessness in our series, No Place to Call Home.
What is a stereotypical view of homelessness? People sleeping in shop doorways, drinking or taking drugs. We all know that does happen, but the face of homelessness has changed. We've met people who are working, who are sleeping in their cars, young students who are sofa surfing because life is just too expensive. They would walk past you in the streets looking put together and you wouldn't bat an eyelid, but they are homeless. Charities say this is a crisis like they've never seen it before. And in a series of special reports on ITV News Meridian, we'll be investigating how the cost of living is putting more and more people at risk of having no place to call home.
And that series starts tomorrow night at 6. But first, before all of that, the ITV Evening News is coming up with Mary Nightingale.
For now, though, from the team, that is it for this evening. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow. Good night.